Welcome back, everybody. We've got a fabulous guest today. It is Jordan Gnat. He's the founder and CEO of Playmaker Capital. It is publicly traded, so you are going to want to pay attention to this interview. See if you can pick up any inside tips that Jordan lets slip. It's PMKR.
No orange jumpsuits. That's our number one rule of this company. There's no orange jumpsuits, so we're all good.
All right. Well, let's see if I can get some information out of you that the everyday investor hasn't necessarily gotten so far. But the ticker symbol is PMKR. So Jordan, thanks for joining us. Good to see you again, my old friend. We're longtime friends.
Good to see you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
From the gaming industry. So tell everybody about Playmaker Capital.
Yeah, thanks. Playmaker Capital is a business that we started in January 2021. And it is a business that lives at the intersection of sports, gambling, media, and technology. And what we did is we set out to look at the emerging sports betting markets and regulated sports betting markets from the top of Canada to the bottom of Argentina. And what we did is build a business based on acquisitions where we've acquired 15 companies in the last 20 months. We've stitched them together with deep integrations, and we've built what is now the 7th largest digital sports media across that entire region and the #1 digital sports media business in Latin America. Our focus is in these emerging markets, so countries like Canada with newly regulating markets, Ontario being an example, the US, states now, you've got over 30 states now that have some form of regulated sports betting and iGaming. Mexico, 120 million people, Brazil, 200 million people, Argentina, 40 million people, large countries in these regions, which are all emerging as newly regulated markets and somewhere where we know that sports betting operators covet sports fans. We know sports fans are the most coveted demographic for a whole bunch of other tier 1 advertisers, your Nikes, your Adidas, your Gatorades, your Coca-Colas of the world. And we build this at scale. We build this audience at scale. We deliver over 100 million, we have about 100 million unique users coming to our properties each month. We deliver over 3 billion ad impressions each and every year. In Brazil alone, we had one website that delivered over 1 billion sessions last year. So large numbers, large audience of these coveted sports fans that we want to deliver at scale to anybody who is looking for sports fans, mainly in these emerging market sports betting operators.
Yeah, and I think an element of your business that a lot of people aren't even aware exists is deals with sports betting companies to help deliver to them players, right? I mean, everybody sees the ads out there, and these big sports betting companies are just killing each other trying to get new players, and it's all about cost of acquiring a new player. And part of your strategy, correct me if I'm wrong, is to deliver to these guys through affiliate deals new players that you'll actually receive some type of commission on.
Yeah, affiliate's an important part of the sports betting industry. When you take a look at a more mature market like Europe and the UK, affiliate still represents 10 to 15% of all marketing spend. So this is the ability for a media company to go out and find sports betting fans, sports betting potential customers, and deliver them to sports betting operators on one of 3 different models. There is a traditional sort of straight advertising model where a sports betting operator will just call them spots and dots on websites, and they'll just pay for a CPM, cost per thousand. There's deals where they will pay a CPA, a cost per acquisition, which is just a single fee that you would get for delivering a first-time depositor and sports bettor to a sports betting operator, or a revenue share where you'll have a lifetime revenue share for a particular customer who has activated through one of your websites with that sports betting operator. You know, we built our business a lot differently than other affiliate operators in the space have done. We really built a media business. What most affiliate operators set out to do is they go and they generate a bunch of URLs and websites and social properties, and they build up audiences on those social properties. But really what they're focusing on is quality traffic that is going using SEO and other tools in order to drive very specific audiences, not necessarily large audiences, but very specific audiences to these particular websites, and deliver them from those websites or social channels to sports betting operators. We came at it the other way. And we said, every sports fan does a whole bunch of stuff. They buy hats, they buy mats, they buy rugs. If you put a Packers logo on it and someone's a Packers fan, they're going to buy something. He said, if sports fans want to buy everything, then why are we focused just on sports betting as one vehicle? There's actually a sports fan, and there's a whole bunch of activity that sports fans do, and you can generate revenue either from advertising or from affiliate. So we went out and bought audience and created audience and grown audience. From there, we can deliver revenue in a whole bunch of different ways. We have straight programmatic revenue, which is basically spots and dots, and then you get direct campaigns. And as you move up the average revenue you can generate per user, the top of the food chain is affiliate. It's where you're going to get the highest value for an individual sports fan. So that affiliate revenue really is, we call it the tip of our spear in terms of how we generate revenue from that particular field. But there's a lot of focus on sports betting operators. We also generate revenue from streaming companies. So Fubo TV, Disney Plus, Sling TV, Paramount Plus. We have affiliate arrangements with them as well. They all want the same thing. They want a sports fan who's going to become a consumer to them. Right now, they're just a customer. They come in, they make a bet, they leave. But they want a consumer. They want loyalty. They want to be able to build a relationship with that particular user by coming to our sites, where people come to our sites often, are always reading updated new material. We're delivering over 1,500 to 2,000 fresh pieces of content each and every day. We drive them back. They get that loyalty. They see these sports betting operators and other products often on our websites. And ultimately, we drive them to sports betting operators who will pay us either a CPA, cost per thousand, sorry, CPA, a cost per acquisition, a CPM, cost per thousand, or lifetime values.
And this affiliate arrangement has become such a big deal that, in fact, you have to actually get a license in many states to be an affiliate, correct?
Mm-hmm. There's states that there's three types of states out there. There's states that are very liberal, where they will just you don't need to get any sort of license whatsoever. So you're just an advertising company. You're just going to take it. There are states where you're required to get a marketing license, and a marketing simple marketing license would allow you to get a cost per acquisition. So a what I would call a CPA, a single fee in order to deliver a sports betting fan to an operator. If you want a revenue share, there are several states that will require you to get a full license. So an example, in the state of New Jersey, if you want to get a revenue share, you need a much higher bar of licensure in order to get there, because the DGE will assume that, and correctly, they assume that you are now generating revenue from sports betting, from the outcome of events. And if that is something you're doing, then the way that they have interpreted that is you'd need to have a more strict license for it. In Ontario, you don't need any license to do any of that. And in some states in the US, you don't need any license for that.
So I think that's the most interesting arrangement out there, where you continue to receive a revenue stream indefinitely from a player that you referred over to one of the sports betting sites. So as they reload their account, you guys are getting a percentage every time they reload. Is that essentially how it works?
You're getting of the value of the player. So value of the player is calculated by wins minus losses, or losses minus wins. So you're getting a percentage of the revenue that a sports betting operator generates. Revenue is sort of what is left over from paying out winnings.
Gotcha. So they have to track all the players and where the players came from and exactly how they've been doing, and then know to cut you guys a check every month.
Yeah, month or quarter, depending on the arrangement you have.
And are all of the sports betting companies doing these arrangements?
So in the European market, it's very common. I mean, this is tried, tested, true. Canada and the US are very, very new. We're in the top of the second inning here. And in the European market, you've got companies, big publicly traded companies in the European market, like Catena Media, like Better Collective. Those are businesses that have long history in the space, and they have a much more mature market where revenue shares are very, very common. In the North America market, it's a little different. I think the sports betting operators themselves are trying to figure out what the value is of a player. So sometimes it's better just for them to cut you a one-time check, than it is to estimate what the value of a potential player could be and decide what they're supposed to be paying you as a percentage. I think eventually, as the market begins to mature, you'll see much more of a split going to between acquisition cost versus a lifetime value. Right now, it's very, very skewed towards single acquisition cost.
And do you have to disclose to the player that, hey, just so you know, player, whenever you lose, we're giving a share of what you lost to those guys over there at Playmaker Capital?
No, you wouldn't have to disclose that. That again, you have privacy rules against all of that sort of stuff. So no, you would not have to. You wouldn't disclose that. You'd be, if you think every player has got on average over 2 accounts, that's a lot of information that you'd be passing back and forth to a lot of different people. And there's, not sure that there's a value that the industry has ever seen. I've never seen that done anywhere.
Right. So when a player goes from your site and then signs up with a sports betting site, they don't necessarily know, or they're not thinking about the fact that, oh, the site that just referred me is making some money off of me.
No, I don't think. I think you'll find in any form of advertising you see on. Just think of this as any other form of advertising on the internet, any other form of affiliate revenue. Fanatics, as an example, is an affiliate model. You go onto a website, you see an ad to buy a shirt, Paul Coffey jersey, you click on it, and next thing you know, you're in Fanatics. You buy the jersey. Whoever referred you from that site got paid to do that. But that's the model, right? The companies like a Fanatics would not have paid to advertise. The model is, we will pay you a fee if that person does convert into a sale. Pretty much every single time you open up Instagram, you're going to see someone trying to get you to sign up to an app, whether that's a workout app, a diet app, or buy some clothing. When you're clicking through all of those different things, eventually, if you make a transaction at some point in the future in a deemed amount of time, the person who posted that on behalf of the operator or the retailer will get paid.
And give us a glimpse into what these sports betting companies are dealing with right now when it comes to acquiring players, because you're hearing about it being very expensive, perhaps too expensive, or they're spending too much money trying to acquire players. I'm hearing stories about, you're in a bar in Tempe, Arizona, and they're paying hot girls to go around table to table and sign up players. The player gets a huge bonus if they sign up. The girl gets a huge bonus for signing you up. I mean, the costs seem pretty high as far as what they're willing to spend these days to acquire a player.
I can't speak to what's going on in Tempe, Arizona, because right now I'm looking outside of my window in Toronto, and it's a lot colder than what it is in Tempe, Arizona.
But maybe in some of those bars, it's probably a little warmer.
What I would say is that if you think about what it costs to build a brand in the US. So let's take FanDuel and DraftKings, right? The two biggest brands in sports betting in the US. FanDuel and DraftKings each spent $1 billion as fantasy sports companies building a brand. And people don't necessarily think about that when they talk about the power of what those brands have been able to create in terms of just truly unabated or sort of unprompted awareness in the marketplace. So what does it cost to acquire a customer? What does it cost to get someone's loyalty? The US is a very, very expensive media market. And I think certainly the cost of acquisition that is out there is high. There's no question. And you see right now, there's been a pullback. You see Caesars has certainly pulled back from where they were in the New York market is one example. And you hear about the sports betting operators. DraftKings just put out their results in the last week. They're talking about profitability, the path to profitability, because the market has changed. The market doesn't want to see spending for the sake of spending. What they want to see is businesses that have a sustainable business model. You've had some companies step out of the industry. Twin Spires, who were Churchill, they came into the industry and they said, this is just not going to work for us. And they have a very focused business model on profitability. So I think the market of buying for the sake of buying players will continue to shift and get down to a more normalized level. But it doesn't go away, right? If you think about it, somebody turns 18, 19, or 21 each and every day. So a sports betting fan is born every single day of the week. every single hour of every single day. So they always need to be in the market to acquire new players. And it's just a question of at what point does that begin to go from a new state opening, where when a new state opens, there is a massive push to get as many new fans into that website as quickly as possible. And then from there, it begins to peter off and get into what I would call just steady state. And that steady state in Europe, as I said earlier, is 10 to 15% of the marketing budget. What's it going to be in Canada and the US and in Brazil and Argentina and in Colombia and in Mexico? It's to be seen. These are newly regulated markets that have not had this activity in the regulated environment as it's had in the gray environment before.
Yeah. Well, you're making me love the space that you're in, because these guys are spending tons of money to get players, and you're basically there with, on the one hand, ready to deliver the player, and on the other hand, with your hand out saying, pay me. And there's a lot of dollars out there.
Listen, when I started Playmaker, as you know, I've been in the gambling industry since 2003. So, I mean, this was not my first rodeo. And when I got into this industry, this is sort of 2000 and, it's summer of 2000. We're in the middle of COVID. Just before this, I was with Stars Group and Fox Bet, and Stars got bought by Flutter. I was happy to leave and put my feet on my desk. And a friend of mine called me and said, hey, would you like to take over our sport tech fund? And I said, no, I don't do funds. But if you want to go try something in the sports betting industry, let me give it some thought. And over the course of that summer, we gave a lot of thought to this newly regulating market. And what you really look at is at the top of the food chain are sports betting operators, right? They are the retailers. At the bottom are the platform providers, just basic, simple technology that is, or complicated technology that sits on the bottom that everything stacks on top of. But in between those two groups is all of the service providers, geolocation services, KYC services, AML services, games providers, payment processors. And the more I looked at this and the more we started coalescing around what is it that we want to do, I go back to my days, and you would know this from your days in the machine business. A slot machine is a fancy piece of furniture with a bunch of lights on it until someone puts 20 bucks in it. And then it turns into a slot machine. Well, a sports betting technology, a sports betting operator is just a marketing company until someone places a bet. And that someone is a sports fan. And so we went at it and said, why are we bothering to be an operator, top of the food chain, or a platform provider, just a toll road? I know that I can feed the beast. And the sports fan area, when you're feeding the beast with sports fans, which is the one thing it needs more than anything, you're in the immediately profitable part of that ecosystem. Can't live without us. You can't run a sports betting business without a sports fan. And so if we set out on a model to build the largest audience of sports fans, a very homogeneous audience. If someone comes to any one of our websites, you know full well that it is a sports fan. If you listen to one of our podcasts, we've got over 20 podcasts. They are all about sports. If you go to any one of our social channels, we have over 175 million social followers on all of our different platforms. You know full well that they are sports fans. So if you're looking for a sports fan, this is somewhere to come. And we know that now that we've aggregated them, we can deliver them at scale to operators, which is what they're wanting.
Very cool. All right, we got to take our break, and then I'm going to give you a free tip for your company. It's one word. It's called pickleball. Pickleball. We'll talk about that after the break.
Major League Pickleball.
Jordan Gnat.
Hi everyone, I'm Veronica Dudo, and welcome to Buy,
Hold, Sell. If you have the Russians that are going into Ukraine, the Americans and the Germans and everyone else in Europe is going to say, hell no.
If Russia doing things, logically was their MO, I'd agree with you. Yeah, Todd, why don't you get him on a phone call right now? Hello.
Financial News TV, just the way you like it. Fast-paced, unadulterated, in-your-face, rock and roll style. Join us next time on Buy, Hold, Sell Live.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to remember all that. I can't even remember.
Oh, God.
Yeah, well, that doesn't. I want you to, oh, my God. Fast pace, no. Oh, sorry.
Take one.
Fast pace, no holds barred, in your face, rock and roll style.
Woohoo!
Good sign.
Let's kick some
And we are back with Jordan Gnat, founder and CEO of Playmaker Capital. Before the break, I mentioned one word, and that is pickleball. The reason I mentioned pickleball is, you know, sports are expanding. Televised sports is expanding. What might be the next, you know, esports is a new thing. I'm curious how much you guys are paying attention to some of these up and coming sports as opposed to the traditional ones.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll take a sport that's not so up and coming, but certainly what we would call green space. Soccer, you know, proper football, not American football. If you look at the Canadian and the U.S. market, it's complete green space. Nobody has taken an ownership of what is the most popular sport in the entire world. You know, Fox, ESPN, corner of their desk. Right? It is something they aren't paying attention to all day long. Something that we excel in very much. And so we bought a property in the summer of 2022 called World Soccer Talk. And we took World Soccer Talk, which was a very small website based out of Florida. Worked with the gentleman who runs that site called Chris Harrison. Chris is an amazing writer. He does a podcast and has an incredible set of knowledge around it. He's a Brit who he speaks fluent football. We took that site from its viewership of about 300 to 500,000 sessions per month up to 2 million. And we did that by really focusing on the content. World Cup was a huge instigator for that for us. In the Canadian market, we had bought an asset called the 90th Minute. We added more content to it. We added a podcast to it, and it's become a very valuable piece of content for anyone who's interested in the soccer market in North America. So absolutely, we're trying to find places where we can find a wedge and break through it. There's lots of people write about NFL, lots are writing about NBA, lots are writing about Major League Baseball. In the Canadian market, hockey is something that is obviously the number one sport here in Canada. And it is something where you've got two major broadcasters, Bell and Rogers, and we have set out to be the challenger brand. We want to be the largest independent voice of hockey in the Canadian market. But in the US market, there isn't anyone really focused on hockey. Again, corner your desk for certain sports companies. Daily Faceoff, which is our national brand. We have a lot of fan sites. We have Oilers Nation, the Leafs Nation, Canucks Army, Flames Nation. Those are just very particular team sites. But Daily Faceoff is anything and everything you want to know about hockey. And it's run by Frank Saravalli, who is one of the top hockey pundits in North America. That audience is now over 30% US. So a huge push for us to bring that sport into the US market. You take a look at something like pickleball. Pickleball, if there is enough audience for it, if there's enough people interested in it, absolutely it becomes something that we talk about. But you need to think about scale, right? When you're in the space of writing about media, you need to have a lot of content to write about. And when you take a look at emerging products like pickleball, it's going to take a while before there's personalities attached to it, and there's statistics and there's information that is going to be worth consistently writing about and creating enough fandom about. The one thing we do is we have a site, our US site Yardbarker is very much about delivering all sports to everybody all the time. And what we call the content is really water cooler smart. It's short form content that gives you in 45 seconds enough information to make you smart about the topic of the day, to sit around with your friends, talk at the office, and know how to be relevant in a conversation. We have a newsletter that goes out to over 400,000 people each and every morning called The Morning Bark. And on The Morning Bark, you can select all kinds of different sports. We have over 300 syndication partners who syndicate their content into Yardbarker that we ingest. So if you want to follow sailing Grand Prix, you can go on to Morning Bark. You'll click, every morning I want to know the most important thing about sailing, the most important thing about the XFL, the most important thing about track and field and swimming. So we've curated the ability to ingest all of that until such time that it's actually a topic that you can then write about, because there's enough constant happenings about that particular sport.
Are there statistics out there as to what percentage of football fans bet on games or have a desire to bet on games versus baseball fans versus hockey fans, etc.?
I don't know if it's the statistic per se. I know that in Nevada, and this is going back a little bit. So NFL rules supreme. So let's just start with that. NFL is the number one bet on sport in the US. It's monster. But football as a category, because I don't remember seeing NFL and college split out, but football as a category is over 40%. Was the last numbers I saw at Las Vegas.
And by the way,
big number.
And by the way, what is it about football that makes it the number one betting sport, do you think?
Yeah, they stole a day of the week from God. I mean, that's like they took Sunday, right? So I mean, what does it happen? So I think the NFL has been a product that for years and years has had enough interesting interactions and enough interesting statistics in it, and enough drama in a sport like that has made it a darling for betting. Whether before this was even legal, I mean, this has been the number one bet on sport in the US for years and years and years. And it's because of just the ability to have all of the activity on one day. Mm-hmm. Now it's spread out over a few days, but it's concentrated. There's a whole week of lead up to it, a whole bunch of information that gets sent out to you over the course of a week. And then you have your ability to bet, and you can spend an entire day watching how all that happens. So the drama that an individual gets around the NFL is quite unique. If you think of hockey, basketball, baseball, the other three major sports in the US. So baseball is 162 games. There's a lot of content there, a lot of games. And are you going to get as excited about one game versus the next game? Different. It's not a day. It's every single day. Hockey and basketball, the cadence is it's continuous cadence that is going on. You don't have 5 games to bet on every single night to bet on. In football, it is all contained. And now with the advent of in-game betting or prop betting and novelty betting that goes on, you get a lot more excitement out of that 3-hour window of an NFL game. It's not just about who's won or lost. It's not just about the over-under. It's not just about the point spread. It's about the quarter. Who's winning after a particular quarter? What is the proposition bet of, is Patrick Mahomes going to get 2 touchdowns or 1 touchdown? Is Travis Kelce going to get 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns? All of that plays into the novelty of how much engagement you can get in a particular game. And NFL has all of those moments in time, and it has enough pauses in the game for you to absorb the information and react. Basketball moves very fast paced. You can't bet on every point in basketball. You can't bet on every shot in hockey. So they're just missing some of those, what I would call sort of in-game moments that are available in every single NFL game.
Yeah. The nice thing about football is you can bet football and not feel like you have a gambling problem because it's once a week. You start betting baseball, yeah. you're gambling every single day. So football is the clear head and shoulders above every other sport when it comes to the gambling dollar. What sport do you see that might be an upcoming sport that might start garnering more attention and more bettors?
Yeah, I think basketball is number 2. Basketball has got a lot of personality attached to it. So, in the case of what's the casual sports fan going to want to do versus sort of a heavy punter, someone who's a big bettor. Basketball again has a lot of that drama that comes onto it. Over under is a big one. What's the total point over under on total points? The spread is huge. In a basketball game, it could be a blowout, but blowout means that do you really want them to try hard in the last? They're up by 15 points. Are they just going to dribble out? I need you to score one more shot. How important is that free throw? There is a lot of drama that happens in that last segment of a basketball game that is meaningful to a sports bettor. So I think that basketball is the number 2 in the market. Baseball is big just because of quantity, right? There's just so much baseball that goes out there. And in Canada, hockey is a much bigger player. It's an over 10% of the market. In the US, it's less than 5% of the market. For total handle in sports betting.
How do you assess hockey from a better standpoint as far as being an enjoyable game to bet on?
In Canada, it's like basketball, right? There's lots of drama that can go on in a hockey game as well. If you're playing total number of goals on an over under, and then the number is 5. and a team is up 3-1, and you've got the under. Well, you don't want somebody to pull the goalie on the other side, because all of a sudden, there's an easy goal that gets in there. So how, same as basketball, how important is that pulling goalie? Don't pull the goalie. I need you not to score a goal. That drama plays into it for a fan. So the game is not over until the game is over. So I think hockey does lend itself, if you understand the sport and get into the sport, like any other sport, you have to get into it to understand it. So I think that in the Canadian market, it's been proven that hockey has got a lot of following here, and you've got to say it's a bigger part of the overall betting percentage. Listen, soccer's still number one in the world. It's massive. In Latin America, it's basically that's it. Like you bet on soccer is number one, and then depending on the country you're in, it's basketball. NFL football is big in Mexico. It's the number two sport, and in Latin America, beyond Mexico, basketball. NBA is the number two sport.
Give me you were talking about soccer, and that's one of your properties. Give me your assessment of where soccer stands in America right now. I mean, it's the first sport that every kid plays now. It's definitely probably the most popular sport for kids. It definitely has grown. This, the league, was it MS? What's the name of the league? Is it
MLS?
MSL?
Yeah, Major League Soccer. Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly seems to be doing well, but it's still it's in fifth place, and pretty distant fifth place.
It's growing. It's a growing, and you're spot on. It's a growing sport because of accessibility, right? Soccer is the most accessible sport for anybody. Every kid plays soccer when they're younger. But what's happening now is, if you think about basketball back in the the 70s and 80s, it took superstars. It took talent. In today's environment, it takes personality. So you had Bird and Magic. You had Julius Erving, and then Bird and Magic came, and all of a sudden the NBA began to take off. And then 1984, you get Michael Jordan comes in, and the NBA starts going crazy, and it's recognizing the power of a brand and a person. Major League Soccer had David Beckham. So David Beckham came in to LA Galaxy years and years ago, and Major League Soccer got a little bit of a boost. What's going to happen now when some of these really well-known personalities in soccer begin to come over in the later parts of their career, but come over to Major League Soccer? And there's talk about Messi coming to Inter Miami is one of the discussions that you hear about. If you read any of our websites, you'll read a lot more about that than others, in particular, given that he's Argentinian. And so I think that you'll see Major League Soccer and soccer in general continue to grow. I do believe that World Cup 2026 will be the single largest global event in sports in the history of the modern era. Nothing will be bigger than this. You're going to have Canada, the US, and Mexico. All through to the time zones are perfect, because Europeans don't care what time they're watching sports. They're going to be up till all hours of the night to watch it. Qatar was a major success from a viewership perspective. They got the times right for people to watch it. And you look at the engagement, the number of people that engaged in that was amazing. And by all accounts, the finals was probably one of the greatest games ever played. It had everything you could have wanted in it, with, the hero winning at the end of the day. The greatest player of all time turns out to be the winner of the World Cup, something he's coveted his whole life. Take that drama and watch that continue. So Major League Soccer is starting this summer with something called the Leagues Cup. It's going to be its version of Champions League. So basically, Liga MX, the Mexican league, and Major League Soccer are going to both shut down for a month, and they're going to play a tournament with each other. And that's very, very big for soccer fans. They love seeing this type of interleague and tournament play. Very, very popular in Europe. It's, you've got CONMEBOL, which is the federation down in Latin America, does something similar. And then you've got in 2024, you're going to have Euros are back on. You're going to have Copa America coming back on. 2025, there's a pre-World Cup event that's going to be happening in Canada, US, Mexico, and then of course World Cup 2026. So I think there's a lot of momentum behind soccer. What they need is viewership. They need people to get more engaged in the game. There's talks about how to improve it. Do you take Major League Soccer and set up a relegation system like you have in Europe, where every game matters, even at the bottom of the table? Right now, all people look about, are you going to make the playoffs? In European, and in particular in the Premier League in the UK, not only do you care about who's going to win, you're always focused on who's on the bottom, because those bottom guys are going to be relegated to the EFL from the EPL. And in the EFL, it's not just winning, it's getting promoted. And so there's talks about how do you create that dynamic in the North American, whether Major League Soccer adopts it or not. There's a lot of things that they can do to do it, to make it even better. And now with their new TV deal with Apple, they're making the product incredibly accessible to not just the television audience in North America, but Apple's a global relationship that they've created, which I think bodes well for them if it takes off.
One thing I've always been curious about is whether in Europe, where there's been sports gambling going on far longer than in the US, right? It's a very robust market, very mature market. Do the teams there benefit directly from any of the sports betting? In other words, do the sports betting companies have to pay any type of license fee to any of the leagues out there that you're aware of?
No, that was a pretty North American phenomenon.
But
North
shouldn't end
American
up
leagues
happening though, right?
do a lot of no surprise that North American leagues do things very commercially.
The leagues here went from opposing, no way, we never want gambling in the sport. It's going to affect the integrity of the sport to pay me, and suddenly the integrity is fine. Well, the reason I ask is that European soccer players by far have the highest salaries of any athletes, I think, in the world. They're bigger, believe it or not, than U.S. salaries. Normally, U.S. salaries are higher than anywhere in the world, but European soccer players make the most. And my theory there was like, gee, maybe somehow all this sports betting that's happening out there in Europe is the reason why there's so much more revenue and they're able to pay the players more.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not coming from sports betting. It's not coming from sports betting direct revenue. They sponsor, so you'll go into any stadium, you'll see a lot of advertising around that. But it's not like we see here, where you've got companies who become what they call ASOs, like authorized. What's an ASO? Authorized
Sports
operator, something like that.
Okay.
But the sports betting operators get a designation from the different leagues that allows them to use marks and logos and other stuff, and they pay them a percentage of either handle or gaming revenue depending on the leagues. Each league has a different interpretation. I think the push for the leagues to there's the economic side. The integrity one is a question of regulation. The leagues were, and this go back 2015 when Adam Silver penned his op-ed, which is how this whole the PASPA overturn really got going. The logic wasn't saying, okay, I just want a big piece of this pie. I think the logic was that the world is changing, and you need to really think about how this is going to be adopting. How we're going to adopt and modify the way we think about sports betting, because the more that people do it and the less regulated it is, the more unsavory the characters are who are going to get into it. That's the thesis. And at the end of the day, if you regulate it, then what you have are all the necessary tools in place to make sure that only a certain segment of the population is able to do this, age restricted. From a league's perspective, only certain people who are not associated with the leagues are able to do it. So, referees, people who work in the leagues themselves, people who work for teams are prohibited from participating in this activity. And that's important for the integrity of the game for sure. And ultimately, it's to make sure that there's responsible gaming tools. And that's the piece that a lot of people aren't really focused on, but one that is hugely, hugely important. And I can't stress that enough how much of a privilege it is to be in the gambling industry that you've been in, that I've been in. And it's an industry with privilege, truly. Like you don't have the right to be in this industry, and a regulator can shut you down as an individual or as a business at any point in time if you cross lines. And responsible gaming is really the one thing that we need to, as an industry, continue to stay focused on in order to allow ourselves to continue to have the ability to offer this product into the market. No different than if you're selling alcohol or tobacco. There are certain rules that you need to have in place in order to ensure that the product is delivered in a safe manner, and that those who are using it understand that the product is what the product is and how to use it in a safe manner.
Yeah. legalizing it and regulating it has always made sense to me. The mob is not very happy about that. First we took the lottery away from the mob, the numbers games, and regulated that, and now we're taking sports betting away from them. But I'm sure they'll find something else. Jordan, we got to leave it there, my friend. Really appreciate it. It's Playmaker Capital. The symbol is PMKR, and don't forget pickleball, Jordan. Pickleball is the future. We're going to have you back on the show in a year. You're going to say you were right about that.
Jim, thanks. It's great seeing you again, and good luck with the show, and thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks again.
Take care.
Buy, hold, sell, brought to you by Crosscheck Management. Hi everyone, I'm Veronica Dudo, and welcome to Buy,
Hold, sell. If you have the Russians that are going into Ukraine, the Americans and the Germans and everyone else in Europe is going to say, hell no.
If Russia doing things, logically was their MO, I'd agree with you. Yeah, Todd, why don't you get him on a phone call right now? Hello, you.
Financial News TV, just the way you like it. Fast-paced, unadulterated, in-your-face, rock and roll style. Join us next time on Buy, Hold, Sell Live.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to remember all that. I can't even remember. Oh, God. Yeah, well, that does. I want you to, oh, my God. Fast-paced, no, oh, sorry.
Take one.
Fast-paced, no holds barred, in-your-face, rock and roll style.
Woohoo! Let's kick some ass.
I want you to smash that like button.
Track, cue, dissolve.
Good morning and welcome
from Bigwig Studios. From the Bigwig Media Studio.
Bigwig Media's broadcast center at the Willard is the ideal headquarters to host your virtual meetings and video conferences.
Kudos to our team who's running around behind the cameras.
What I liked about working with Bigwig Media was you guys are the experts.
Our industry pros have you covered. Let's get started.